You'll never fall in love with the right woman, nor will she with you. What keeps us hooked on someone, and what makes us addicted, is rarely logical, healthy, or balanced. Deep down, what makes you want to stay isn't the peace she offers, but the slight imbalance she provokes. And that's why flirting, when done right, isn't just a social dance. It's an act of emotional warfare, an invisible ritual where the winner isn't the one trying to win, but the one who's learned to control the other person's desire. Most men have never understood this. They believe flirting is about showing they're cool, interesting, funny, and the more they try to show their worth, the deeper they sink into the invisible mire of emotional mediocrity. Because the true game of attraction isn't played with words, smiles, or compliments. It's played with tension, silence, and small, carefully calibrated doses of unpredictability. The big mistake is trying to be chosen. When you flirt with the desire to be accepted, you transfer all the power of the interaction to the other person. You become predictable, decipherable, emotionally secure, and therefore emotionally disposable. Addiction only arises where there is emotional tension, and no tension can exist where everything is handed to her on a silver platter. Flirting well is about creating uncertainty. It's about making her wonder if you're real, if you're interested, if what you said has more layers than she realized. Good flirting doesn't answer, it suggests. Good flirting doesn't reveal, it instigates. And when done masterfully, it doesn't conquer, it addicts. It's like Ortega y Gasset said, love only happens when there is fascination and surrender. But fascination isn't born from the obvious, and surrender doesn't happen on level ground. For her to surrender, she needs to stumble upon you, doubt herself, feel the pulse of the unexpected. And in this game, those who flirt too well dominate not only the conversation, but her mind. And from now on, you'll learn to do this, word by word, look by look, until addiction is no longer a possibility, but an inevitable consequence. Have you ever walked into a room and seen a man try to flirt with a woman? Pay attention. In 90% of cases, what you're seeing isn't flirting. It's a disguised request for approval. He laughs before the joke is over. He leans in too far. He talks quickly, wanting to prove he has something to talk about. He throws compliments like someone throwing crumbs hoping to see a bird approach. And what does he get in return? A polite smile, an automatic response, and the devastating feeling that he's invisible even though he's kind. The reason is simple and brutal. His flirting was born of necessity, not choice. And everything born of necessity carries the scent of neediness. The irony is that most men believe they're being authentic, that they're doing the right thing, showing interest, showing that he's different, that he's trustworthy, that he's someone she should be involved with. But this is the cruelest trap in the social game. Believing that direct interest generates immediate reciprocity. The reality is that the more you demonstrate urgency to be accepted, the more you give away your value. And the more obvious your value seems, the less magnetic you become. This isn't just psychology, it's neuroscience. The human brain is programmed to ignore anything that doesn't pose a challenge. The reward system that regulates desire, driven by dopamine, is only activated by that which creates tension and anticipation. Flirting, therefore, needs to be a field of controlled uncertainty. If you reveal yourself too quickly, you eliminate doubt. And without a doubt, there is no fascination. Without fascination, there is no addiction. Without addiction, there is no chance. And here's the contradiction no one wants to accept. When you flirt, trying to prove your worth, you communicate exactly the opposite. You show that your value depends on her gaze. You say, without words, that your brilliance needs the reflection of her eyes to exist. And no desire arises where there is emotional dependence. Desire is selfish. It projects itself onto that which seems self-sufficient, free, and subtly out of reach. It's what Freud called the transference object. That which activates in the other not only attraction, but the desire to possess, to interpret, to decipher. This is why some men, even without saying anything, make women lean in closer. They're not seeking acceptance. They're choosing whether or not to invest attention. And this simple reversal from seeker to selector completely changes the chemistry of the interaction. Because now she's the one who begins to doubt her own worth. And the moment she asks herself, "What does he think of me?" the tables are turned. Tension is created. Interest has gone from being an obligation to a mission. But how can we change this pattern? How can we break the curse of needy flirting? First, observe your energy before you even open your mouth. If you enter a room seeking to be noticed, you've already lost. Entering with mature masculine energy means entering as someone who is complete, as someone who has something interesting going on inside and who isn't there to fill an emotional void, but to share an excess. This changes the posture, the look in your eyes, the tempo of speech. A man with value doesn't rush to fill silences. He savors silence. He creates space, and it's in this space that a woman begins to project herself. Second, control your need to please. The biggest mistake in flirting is trying to be inoffensive. Men who want to appear too safe lose their erotic power. Sexuality and genuine interest lives in the tension between security and danger. If you suppress all your masculine presence for fear of appearing too much, you provoke nothing. You become comfortable, and comfort is great after attraction, not before. Third, understand the power of rhythm. Every flirtation has an implicit dance. And like every dance, the one who sets the pace dominates. Needy men follow the woman's rhythm. They adjust their speech, their tone, their theme, everything to fit in. But the magnetic man sets his own pace. He leads. He knows when to speed up, when to pause, when to veer off. He understands that emotional fluidity comes from contrast, not predictability. This is the point many confuse. Flirting well isn't about being performative. It's not about appearing alpha. It's about mastering one's own emotional states to such an extent that a woman realizes this man isn't here for attention. He is the very source of it. He doesn't react to her presence. He observes. He feels. He chooses. There's a little quoted passage from Machiavelli in The Prince that says, "It is better to be feared than loved, if one cannot be both." Bringing this to the world of flirting, we can translate it like this. It's better to be intriguing than admired if you're not yet desired. Admiration is a delayed effect of desire. First, you need to generate emotional discomfort, that slight internal imbalance that makes her wonder, who is this guy? Only then comes respect. Only then comes connection. And here's a practical exercise to reverse this. In the next 3 flirtations, talk less. Observe more. Listen with intention. Ask questions she doesn't expect. Don't try to be funny. Try to be enigmatic. Leave gaps. Leave the feeling that there's more to you than what's been shown. And when you sense she's interested, change the subject. Interrupt the moment. Come out on top. Plant the mystery. This activates the pursuit instinct, the desire for continuity, the emotional appetite. When you start flirting from this place, not from the need to be accepted, but from the freedom to express yourself, everything changes. You leave the level of ordinary men and enter a rare territory where your simple gaze carries more tension than 1,000 well-spoken words. And that's when she begins to dream about you, because now you're no longer a candidate. You're an emotional challenge with a face, a voice, and a presence. And challenges are addictive. And this is where many masks begin to fall. Because, contrary to popular belief, true flirting isn't light, it's intense. It's subtly aggressive. It exposes, it reveals the other person's insecurity. It creates a game of mirrors where every gesture can be an invitation or a threat. It is, as the Forbidden Manual says, a form of social control disguised as interest. A primitive ritual that transforms banal interactions into silent struggles for emotional dominance. And you can pretend it's not like that. You can keep trying to be kind, cordial, polite. You can keep sending cute messages and offering flowers before you build attraction. But in the meantime, men who understand the mechanics of desire will be silently generating obsession. Because they flirt not with neediness, but with presence. And presence is what 99% of men lack today. She doesn't remember the words. She doesn't remember the jokes. She doesn't remember if you were wearing a shirt or a t-shirt. But she remembers the feeling. She remembers how the atmosphere changed when you walked in. She remembers the tension in the air, the butterflies in her stomach, the slight discomfort that, for some reason, felt good. Because real seduction doesn't reside in what's said. It resides in what's felt, and most importantly, in what can't be explained. That's where invisible flirting resides. A game played not with phrases, but with presence. A field where body language speaks louder than any compliment, and where silence, when well calibrated, can be more seductive than an entire speech. The man who masters this game is the one who teases without touching, who captivates without holding back, who leads without seeming to control. And the secret is simple: he knows how to manipulate a woman's subconscious perception. He seduces her mind before she even realizes what's happening. While ordinary men try to impress with words and stories, the true seducer understands that the human brain is a sensory machine. He doesn't need logic, he needs stimulation. He needs emotional tension, micro-expressions, pattern breaks that activate the limbic system. The flirting that's addictive is the kind that escapes predictability. And to achieve that, you need to operate below the rational radar. You need to sneak into the back door of her mind. How? Starting with the look. The look is the first silent weapon in the game. A man who stares too much, trying to maintain eye contact, seems anxious, invasive, needy. A man who looks away too quickly seems insecure, fragile, overwhelmed by her presence. But the man who knows how to pace himself, who holds his gaze for half a second longer than expected, who alternates between full attention and a slight disconnect, creates an internal loop in her head. He's present, but not begging. He's interested, but not surrendered. And this neurologically activates what we call intermittent selective attention. Her brain starts asking itself, why does he seem so relaxed? Does he like me? Why can't I stop thinking about this? This doubt is the beginning of addiction. Then comes the response time. Men trained in verbal flirting always try to be quick, dynamic, and funny. They think speed creates value, but the subconscious doesn't process it that way. The mind interprets too much speed as an attempt to impress, and anything that seems like effort automatically loses its magnetism. The man who responds calmly, who tolerates silence, who seems to savor every word, communicates something worth more than any punchline: emotional self-sufficiency. She may not consciously realize this. She may even think you're too calm, but her body will respond differently. Because your slower tone of voice, your more measured pace, and your careful choice of words activate another system in her, that of instinctive security. And at the same time, this calm, contrasted with ambiguous looks and a dense presence, creates the perfect blend of comfort and tension. It's precisely this combination that's addictive. You can't just be provocative, and you can't just be calm. You need to be both, in alternating layers. Predictability is the greatest enemy of seduction. When she knows exactly what to expect from you, she stops observing you. When she thinks she's got you figured out, she switches off. Therefore, the invisible game is about maintaining a level of mystery at all times, not with forced, enigmatic phrases, but with unexpected postures, surgical pauses, and subtle shifts in focus. One of the greatest secrets of subconscious flirting lies in an element almost no one talks about: the rhythm of presence. This means emotionally entering and exiting the conversation without warning. When you're very present, 100% focused on her, you create heat. But if you maintain that heat constantly, it saturates. Therefore, the secret is to offer intense presence and then withdraw. Be slightly distracted, change focus, leave her hanging, and then return with intensity again. This creates emotional waves, and emotional waves are the engine of attachment. This technique was documented by Robert Greene in The Art of Seduction and called intermittent validation. By offering your full attention and then pulling back slightly, you generate emotional peaks and valleys. Her brain can't predict your behavior, and this activates the dopaminergic-seeking system. It's the same mechanism as a slot machine. It's addictive, not because it always delivers, but because it delivers sometimes. It's the maybe that hooks. It's the almost that hypnotizes. And at this point, you need to understand something crucial. Good flirting is more about rhythm than content. It's a dance of energy, where your body's firmness, your measured voice, your look that suggests and then withdraws, are more impactful than any prepared phrase. Phrases generate logic, but emotional tension generates addiction. And women don't remember logic, they remember sensation. You might be thinking, but I'm shy. And this is where the magic happens. The invisible game is the introspective's best friend, because it doesn't require performance. It requires presence. It requires you to be observant, to feel the mood, to choose when to show yourself and when to be silent. Often, the simple fact that you don't try to shine is the sparkle in itself. Silence, when filled with intention, becomes the most seductive line of the night. Cleopatra, one of history's greatest seductresses, rarely seduced with words. She created atmospheres. She let men get lost in her pauses, in her rhythmic voice, in her look, as if she were hiding something. She understood before anyone else that mystery isn't a trick, it's a weapon. And the man who understands this today in times of oversharing becomes instantly magnetic. Because he is rare. And everything that is rare becomes valuable. You don't need to pretend to be mysterious. You need to stop giving everything away. You need to train your ability to measure presence, knowing when to be 100% there and when to retreat. And this even applies to messages. A text that's too quick, always available, always reactive, conveys emotional predictability. But a response that comes after a while, that changes the pace of the conversation, that comes with an unexpected phrase, breaks the script. And everything that breaks the script generates renewed attention. And here's the most overlooked point of all. Your internal state determines your external energy. There's no point trying to appear confident if inside you're tense, uncomfortable, desperate for acceptance. Her subconscious senses it. Body language betrays it. Therefore, the invisible game requires you to cultivate, before anything else, a stable emotional core. This means accepting rejection as part of the process. It means not trying to control the outcome of the interaction. It means being so at peace with yourself that your gaze doesn't search, it observes, and your speech doesn't convince, it invites. The great distinguishing feature of an irresistible man isn't his appearance, it's his core. It's your ability to be whole while the world tries to distract you. This man, even in silence, takes up space. Because his energy carries density, and this density is interpreted unconsciously as value. And value can't be explained, it can be felt. Ultimately, the most powerful flirtation isn't the one that generates smiles, but the one that generates doubt. It's the one that makes her lie in bed and wonder, what was that all about? It's the one that leaves unanswered questions, unfinished sensations, stimuli that resonate even after the encounter is over. And to achieve this, you don't need to memorize lines. You need to memorize the silence. You need to make your gaze an invitation and your pause a provocation. She may not understand why she's thinking so much about you, but she will. Because the invisible game leaves traces in the soul. It's played with emotional intelligence, with reading the room, with silent presence, and with movements that defy common logic. And when you master this, flirting stops being an attempt and becomes hypnosis. Desire isn't what attracts you. Desire is what consumes you. And in the game of seduction, the ultimate goal has never been just to attract. It's always been to create dependence, to become that emotional presence that, even absent, continues to occupy space within her mind. And this state, this presence that sticks, that disturbs, that addicts, is a strategic construct. It's not an accident, it's emotional engineering, and you're about to learn how to execute it. It all starts with a simple but devastating principle. Addiction isn't born from constancy. Addiction is born from imbalance, from the oscillation between reward and uncertainty. When something is predictable, the brain goes into sleep mode. But when something fluctuates between extremes, hot and cold, presence and absence, validation and provocation, the brain can't shut down. It goes into a loop. It keeps trying to predict. And in the process, it creates bonds. It's the exact mechanism behind all emotional addiction. In behavioral psychology, this phenomenon is known as intermittent reinforcement. It's the same principle used in gambling and social media apps. The dopamine system responds more intensely when it doesn't know when the next dose will come. The anticipation becomes more powerful than the reward itself. And the same goes for flirting. If you offer continuous attention, she gets used to it. But if you alternate between emotional warmth and slight withdrawal, she enters a state of seeking. And the seeking brain is an addicted brain. Most men make the mistake of being too linear. They meet a woman, pay attention, maintain contact, respond quickly, and make themselves available. And all of this, while seemingly respectful, is emotionally static. She understands the pattern. And if she understands the pattern, she controls the game. Now, the man who creates micro-frustrations, who withdraws at the peak, who disappears without explanation and reappears with greater intensity, is creating what we call an oscillating attachment cycle. And this cycle, when activated correctly, creates emotional dependence. But be careful. This is not manipulation. Manipulation is lying. What we're doing here is creating a pattern of emotional energy that keeps her attention alive, that activates constant curiosity, and that transforms your presence into something rare, and therefore valuable. How to apply this in practice? First, use validation as a scarce currency. Never give easy compliments. Every time you give a compliment, you reduce the mystery. But when you hint at admiration, when you praise an unexpected quality, or when you compliment and then change the subject as if it didn't carry much weight, you plant doubt, and doubt creates fixation. She starts to wonder, does he really like me? And it's in this space between what was said and what wasn't confirmed that desire grows. Second, build micro-tensions and learn not to resolve them immediately. For example, ask a provocative question, and when she starts to answer, change the direction of the conversation. Interrupt gently, leave it hanging, create a gap. This creates unresolved emotional tension, and everything that's unfinished resonates in the mind. Third, masterfully exploit ambiguity. Ambiguity is the essence of charm. Phrases like, "You're different, but I won't explain why," or "You have something strange that I like, I'm still trying to figure it out," are emotional bait. They don't give away. They tease. They activate the part of the brain that needs to decipher, understand, and gain clarity. And in this process, it connects. It invests cognitive and emotional energy, and anything that requires investment creates a bond. But there's something even more powerful than arousing curiosity: provoking contrast. You need to become emotionally unpredictable, but with energetic consistency. This seems contradictory, and that's exactly why it works. An unstable man is rejected, but an emotionally stable man who varies the type of energy he offers becomes fascinating. One moment intense, the next lighthearted. One moment romantic, the next sarcastic. One moment quiet, the next full of presence. This creates an emotional labyrinth. And a labyrinth, when well constructed, doesn't alienate. It captivates. Because the more she walks, the more she wants to find a way out. And the way out is you. Here comes the final touch: strategic emotional scarcity. You don't have to disappear for days. You don't have to make excuses. You just need to control the frequency and intensity with which you give. For example, after an intense encounter, don't text the next day. Let the silence speak for you. Let her mind fill the space. And when she returns, don't return asking for attention. Return as if nothing happened. This breaks the classic emotional pattern and puts you in a psychological reference position. She begins to regulate her own emotional state based on you. This is addiction. This is exactly what Style and Mystery did in the stories from the game. They didn't just seduce, they disappeared, changed frequencies, left emotional clues, and when they reappeared, the impact was amplified. Because the space you occupy emotionally grows when you intentionally withdraw. But there's a key point here that no one told you. Emotional addiction isn't built just with words and disappearances. It's built with unique sensory experiences. If you create moments that are unlike anything she's ever experienced, in their intensity, their silence, their level of connection, you become an emotional reference point. Her brain will associate rare sensations with your presence. This could be a shared silence in the middle of a crowd, a look that lingers longer than it should, a light touch at just the right moment, a comment that reveals you understood something about her that no one else did. These emotional anchors are what build addiction. And the more you mix tension with vulnerability, the deeper it goes. A man who can be intense and at the same time show that he knows how to keep quiet, that he knows how to listen, that he has a calm side and a wild side, is offering everything her brain craves in silence: novelty, mystery, depth, and emotional risk. Yes, risk. Because without risk, there is no intensity. And without intensity, there is no memory. You need to become an emotional gamble. And gambles, when addictive, dominate the mind. And finally, never forget, addiction isn't built just by what you do, but by what you take away. Strategically withdrawing attention is the most powerful weapon of all, not as punishment, but as natural scarcity. When you remove your presence after intense moments, you force her mind to relive, to reprocess, to reinterpret, and in this emotional replay, you become more than a man. You become an experience, and experiences are much harder to forget than people. You don't want to be remembered for what you said. You want to be remembered for who she became in your presence, for the way you made her feel, for the labyrinth you created inside her. And when she finds herself thinking about you for no reason, when she misses you without having anything objective to justify it, that's when you've won. And if you've made it this far, you already know we're not talking about cheap pickup lines or recycled social tricks. We're talking about the invisible art of activating desire before her logic kicks in. And that's the heart of everything the Forbidden Manual reveals in brutal detail. This isn't a book about seduction. It's about emotional engineering, about reprogramming how she perceives you in less than 60 seconds. Because when you master the first signals, the rhythm, the look, the timing of your withdrawal, you no longer need convincing. She feels it. She interprets your scarcity as value and your unpredictability as power. While normal men flirt out of necessity, the man in the Forbidden Manual flirts for dominance. He creates addiction not with words, but with emotional contrasts. He doesn't approach, he attracts. He doesn't seek attention, he conditions it. And the most dangerous thing? He can do it silently, in a look, in a touch that isn't repeated, in an absence that can't be explained. This video only scratches the surface. The real game begins when you understand that the most captivating seduction is the one she doesn't realize she started. And when she does, she'll already be hooked. If you're ready to activate this with precision, dive into the Forbidden Manual, and then come back here to answer.